my very warm pleasure to welcome everybody here this morning to our special event, Part 1 on Dreams. This morning we're going to explore why dream, okay, through the use of drama and music. Unfortunately we don't have a dance for you today, but next week maybe. So what I'd like you to do is to relax, sit back and enjoy what's been prepared. So right now let's just put it together for the congregation team.
Good morning everybody. Welcome once again to our special event on dreams. I'm just curious whether you guys have dreams as weird as mine. Do you ever have like a dream where you've been chased by something and it's like, could be anything. Could be in a meadow or something, nice swaying grass, and all of a sudden something's chasing you like a big set of teeth or something. You know how it is with those dreams, you'll be trying to run but you'll be going so slow. These teeth are gaining on you. And then, the way dreams are, all of a sudden the setting changes and you could be on the water and these teeth are in a speedboat. Anyway, hopefully someone will explain to me this morning why my mind plays those sorts of tricks on me. But in the meantime, we're going to sing a song together, so if you will stand.
please, could you just pass the bag along as it goes along the rows and down the aisles? Thank you very much. Now, there are a couple of notices. The first notice is really important, coming from the AGM that we had on Monday night. There was one thing omitted. On the guidelines to think about, it has been proposed that we'll change the date of the AGM from July to February, March in order to better fit in with financial year budgeting. So if people could think about that, we will be having another meeting. The date will be announced later. We're not sure of it yet. We will need to vote on that. So please keep that one in mind. And then there were also the other things in the guidelines to think about. Now the second big thing is there is a seminar coming up in a couple of weeks' time by Ian Grant and Mary Grant called Hot Tips for Parents. It's all about building confident parents of confident families. And there are brochures outside on the little table that's outside there at the door. If you would like to get these, it's going to be held locally. The cost is only $10. And there is a phone number to ring in order to send in. And these are for everybody. This is not just for someone who thinks, oh, it must be just for church people. People everywhere go to hear Ian and Mary Grant. They have a long track record of dealing with families, helping families. Their own family is now grown up, and so they can talk with the voice of experience. And they're really good. We went to one a couple of years ago. Also, the house will be moving on Tuesday, and there is still children's church. If people want to take children to children's church is on in the back room. Yeah, I guess if I said to you, what's the best thing about night time and going to bed, a lot of people will be saying, oh, I'm looking forward to a dream, especially kids. And on Friday morning, I woke up, my daughter, she was just a bit late, and she said, Mum, why did you wake me up? I was in the middle of this really good dream. I said, oh, tell me about it. And she said, oh, well, we didn't need you, Mum. So that was a good start. There were no parents, and we were going to a volcano, because volcanoes have been coming up in the conversation, and we were going to plug it up, and we were going there, and we were coming back, and I don't know quite exactly all the rest of the dream. She found it a bit hard to explain, but obviously that part of this dream was her learning to be a bit more independent and doing something, that was something amazing, plugging up a volcano. You know, that lava wasn't going to float out, because we've been talking about that. And I know that that's one of the important things about dreams. And I know for myself that sometimes I'll dream about something that's been happening during the day, and at night time, when I'm dreaming, I think, hey, that's what I need to do. So I'm solving problems. And I guess if I asked you people, a lot of you would say, yeah, I've done that. I've worked on something, like even homework, or trying to fix up a colour scheme for something, or anything. You just solve that problem in your dreams. And that's one of the wonderful things about dreams. Well, next week, we're going to look at our dreams and think about how can we interpret them. So that's what we'll be doing 10:30 live on Sunday morning next week. And this morning, after the service, we'll be having a cup of tea. Please, you're welcome to come and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. But next up, we'll welcome our drama team. And the drama is called To Sleep is to Dream. Thank you.
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
What'd you get up to?
Oh, I just hung around the house doing stuff, you know.
Weren't you supposed to be doing something outside?
Yeah,
What was it again?
digging.
digging what?
Oh,
But that's what you do here.
oh yeah, it's much tougher here, though, mate.
So, how many holes have you dug at home so far?
Well, none really. I was just thinking about it first. It's really hard digging holes with a camera in one hand and a TV remote in the other two.
Yeah, and when you got your feet up on the lazy boy, watching the rugby.
You're on that, mate.
So, what does the wife have to say about it?
Oh, nothing. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Why do women wear white on the wedding day?
I don't know.
To match the stove, the washing machine and the dryer.
That's a really good joke, Jack. It's a especially good one to tell when there's females around.
Yeah, I thought it was funny anyway.
Oh, man, it's hot.
Yeah, it's all this hard work, eh, Phil? Phil, I might be guessing, but are you tired?
Does it show?
Well, you keep yawning. Rough night, eh?
Yeah. I'm having a strange dream and it kept me awake all night just thinking about it.
Was I in it?
No.
What about women?
Yeah, not the ones you're thinking of. No, it's, you see, in this dream I'm a cop, and I'm about to get married to this Polynesian girl, you see, but I'm not sure that she's a she.
So she could be a he.
Yeah. Anyway, her dad's a church minister, and I'm on my way to see her, and I'm driving down the road, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the road is her Jeep, and it's sideways across the road, and there's all these cops and reporters around it. And I could see that she had a bullet in the head, and so I got out the car, but there were all these other people around the Jeep, and they were stopping the cops getting to the Jeep.
It's really strange.
That's not all.
What happened next?
Well, like I said, I got out the car and I'm trying to get to the Jeep, I'm fighting through these people, and all of a sudden there's this really big guy and he's got half a finger. And so we start pushing each other and I push him back up against the Jeep, and his hand goes through the broken window and he reaches down between the seats and he pulls out 10 cents.
10 cents.
Yeah, and he starts waving the 10-cent piece around going, look, I found 10 cents. And everybody gathers around him.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you reckon it means?
I don't know.
Oh, man, all this hard work's making me tired.
Yeah, me too.
Let's go have lunch.
Yeah. Hey, we can catch up with one of those dream people.
What, interpreters?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Idiots!
Well, dreams are really mysterious things, aren't they? And they intrigue us all, but often we don't actually understand them. And this morning I've got some readings that I'd like us to reflect on. The writer of Ecclesiastes says, as a dream comes when there are many cares, so is the speech of a fool when there are many words. Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, stand in awe of God. Now, Daniel was a man in history, and he had an amazing understanding afraid. As I was lying in my bed, the images and visions that passed through my mind terrified me. And for many, that is reality, and I guess most of us could actually relate to that at some stage with our dreams. But God has also given us a promise. And it's a promise that is for now, and it's a promise that's for you and for me. And it is, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. And now we've got a song from our music team, and it's called Nightmare Number 71.
I'm sure most of you thought when you saw that apparition came out that you were seeing a nightmare or a vision or a dream, perhaps. Let's give him a hand again. Just before I speak, one of our men has got an urgent call. He's got sickness in his family. It's quite serious, and somebody's picked up his car keys from the back seat. Would you like to take them to the back door there? It's Sean, if you have them. So it'd be lovely. All right. I don't know about you, but I've had all sorts of experiences in terms of dreams and visions in my life. But before we think about that, I want to just give you this kind of statement that I found. It was written by an old Jewish scholar. And let's have a look at it. A dream, unexplained, is like a letter, unopened. I had an experience this week where I came home and I discovered that as I climbed out of the van, there was this letter laying in the gutter. And I thought, do I leave it there or do I pick it up? And in the end I thought, well, it might be a letter for me, but then I thought, well, nobody sends letters there. They always send letters to my P.O. box number. However, my curiosity got the better of me, so I went over and I picked up the letter, and much to my amazement, it had Pastor Gary Colville, 44 Driver Crescent written on it. So I opened it, wet and sopping as it was, having been in the gutter in the rain, only to discover inside this amazing little poem and some thoughts that had been just passed on to me by somebody. And I thought, you know, if I hadn't found that letter had remained in the drain, I would have never have discovered the content of it, which was really, really appreciated for me at the time. You know, a dream unexplained is like a letter unopened. And I want to ask this question this morning of all of us here. Why do we not take dreams very seriously sometimes? I sat and I thought about that, and I thought, whoa, when I was a child, I had some really interesting experiences. One of my worst dreams used to be a recurring one, over and over again, a little like one of the stories told earlier. There was somebody chasing me. We had a man by the name of Mr. Kearney who lived in the small town I lived in. And when we were naughty, my parents used to tell us, Mr. Kearney used to walk along with an old sack along the road. And my parents used to tell us that Mr. Kearney was going around collecting up naughty little children and taking their bones to be broken down into soap. So I used to have this dream of Mr. Kearney turning up in my dreams and stuffing me in his bag and taking me down the rope and turning me into soap. Well, I didn't think I was very clean, so soap probably wasn't appropriate. Then my second dream I used to have as a recurring one, I used to go to sleep and as I wake up with a start sometimes, I'd be just going to sleep often, and because I'd had this dream that my parents had sent me down to the shop to get something from the shop, and they had given me a 10-shilling note. Now, for those of you who don't know what that was, it was a note, a little looking like $1, and it was an old coinage, but it was a lot of money, a huge amount of money. I mean, a threepence would buy a bag of lollies. Now, you won't know what a threepence is, but it's probably the nearest thing to 2 cents. So it gives you some idea, 10 shillings was worth a lot of money. And I used to get to the shop in my dream, and I used to hold my hand in my pocket all the way to the shop. And as I went to buy the thing, I'd ask for the thing from the shopkeeper. I'd pull my hand out, much to my horror, the 10 shillings had turned into a piece of paper. It was my dream. The last one was a little more serious for me. Because what would happen, I would get to school and all the children would be standing there in the dream laughing at me. Laughing heaps. And it wasn't until I looked down and I noticed I had forgotten to put my shorts and my underwear on. That was my dream. The fears that we live with. And we wonder why we don't take our dreams too seriously. You see, when I talked about my dreams, everybody just laughed. What a silly dream. They were very real to me. And really looking back, what they did, if you think about it seriously, they spelled out the things that I feared. And they talked about who I was at the time. And I think all of us, if we reflect enough, will notice that. I'm just going to straighten this thing up a little bit. Now I want to ask this question. Why do we have dreams? Why do we have dreams? And I think to understand why we have dreams, we need to think about what dreams are. And there are two types of dreams, basically. There's first of all what I call the mind or flesh dreams, the imaginations that come from our own fears or experiences. And then there's a second type, which Marilyn's just going to unfold for me, spirit dreams. Our spirits see and hear things we would not normally be open to. Now, I have used these terms myself because I couldn't find a better way of describing them, and I've read a number of books and done lots of thinking, and I think, you know, we need something we can put our hands on, we can understand. So the imaginations of our hearts, our own desires, fears or experiences are like the dreams I spoke about before, or like the ones that Nick spoke about, or like the one he created when he came out here in his pyjamas. Just as well we didn't see him just after he'd woken up. Might have been worse. Hey, Laurie. Alright. Spiritual communication is what dreams are all about. We don't always realise that. Now, when I talk about spiritual communication, I'm talking about the second level. See, the first level may spell out our fears and may spell out who we are and all the rest of it, but they may have no other significance than that. And you might notice that I'm using the word may, and I'll explain why I'm saying that. Because the thing is that sometimes we've made the mistake of thinking that these dreams don't have any significance to who we are and or any significance to our life. And yet, they show us a reality that cannot be seen by the natural eye. They're not usually what happens, except if you become an older person and you start seeing even more of the dreams and visions. You sort of sit down and you go to sleep and you wake up with a start, having just realised you've seen something quite deep and profound, and not always understanding it. Listen to a quotation I found by a guy called Morton Kesley, who has been for some years working a lot with people who've experienced dreams and helping them understand them. He said this about himself: as I began to take an interest in dreams, I became aware for the first time in my life that God wanted to speak to me. That God wanted to speak to me, he says. See, the thing is that dreams show us a reality that we're not normally open to. Dreams do show us a reality. Let me illustrate this for you. Dreams are like these two objects I have on stage. You may wonder why I've had them here. You see, a dream can either be understood or not understood. Now, first of all, to understand a dream, we need to unpackage it. Then we need to take a good look down it, and a long look down it, and see what we can see. And I can see you way down there. And we need to search out the meaning. The trouble is that most of us don't unpackage dreams and see the straight nature of them. What we often do is we kind of like this kind of thing, and we kind of, and we wonder why we're baffled. We don't understand. Seems to be a bunch of confusion. Loops that seem to have no bearing or real relationship to our lives. We kind of struggle with, you know, is this dream really real? Is this dream really speaking about something for me? Is this dream just a fantasy of my mind? Or is there something else to my dream? And I want to say to you this morning, in the journey of this week and the following week, we hope to be able to help you to take the dream, see it straight, to take a good, hard, long look and to understand things that maybe you have never understood before. There are all sorts of people that go around with this whole thing about dreams and claim interpretation of dreams. I want to say this to you very carefully, very clearly. There are people that are offering on the television interpretation to dreams. I want to give you a warning right now. I have seen the results of some of their interpretations. See, because a person says that a dream is true or real, doesn't mean to say that they understand it. Because they claim to have understanding, doesn't mean to say that they do. I've on several occasions over the years I've been pastoring in 20 and a half years, had people who have had interpretations of dreams given to them only to discover sometime later that the interpretation was wrong. Abraham Lincoln had this amazing experience. A week before he was shot on stage, he had this dream that he spent a lot of time trying to figure out. Because see, Abraham Lincoln knew that dreams were there for a reason. He understood this principle. And so what actually happened with Abraham Lincoln, he sat down and he tried to puzzle through it. And the thing he saw in his dream was a man laying in state. And he couldn't figure out what it could possibly mean. And he went to the performance where he was shot without a bodyguard. I wonder what would have happened if he had understood the dream and he had taken the warning from that dream. He'd been able to take action. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Yeah? It is. You see, he told and he wrote about this dream experience. But because he didn't understand it, he actually missed the point. And I guess one thing could be said, he got to be with God a little earlier. That's the only result. But dreams are like our tubes. And the trouble with dreams is that, although there are people that would say that dreams are simply from our own spirit and they don't have any further significance than that, I want to extend you a little bit this morning and suggest that there are other activities that happen in our own spirit. You see, our mind, the flesh type things, can imagine all sorts of things. Our spirit, we are very little in the Western world today in touch with. You see, Aristotle, many years ago, he was BC when he was born. And I think it was around about 320 or something like that. Aristotle actually created a problem for us, the fact that he was a great thinker in the Western world, and he eventually, in the old world rather, and eventually had a huge impact on the Western world. He based a lot of his thinking and some of the other famous thinkers of his day and prior to his day. And Aristotle wanted to basically ignore the spiritual. He thought he had it all figured out. He thought he could understand the world without considering the spiritual, basically. Great on moral thinking. Great on intellectual understanding of things. But weak in this one area. And so what actually happened to us is that we stopped seeing the significance as humans. We stopped seeing the significance of the connection between our own spirit and the spiritual world. And dreams are definitely, in terms of that, in terms of this side, us hearing and seeing and understanding things in the spirit that we wouldn't normally understand. Because let's face it, we don't normally communicate with our spirits. And so when we sleep, when we dream, or maybe even have visions, that's the one occasion when we do come in contact. So, I want to make this proposition to you this morning. God definitely wants to speak to our spirit. And many people, especially Christians, make the assumption that only God can. I want to suggest to you this morning that not only God can, but there are other spiritual entities that would like to enter into our dreams. Now I want to say one thing that's very clear for those of you who are here and would say, well, man, that's really putting me in a dangerous spot. I don't know what to do with that, if that's the case. If you are a person who's following Jesus Christ, and you're a Christian, and you are being obedient to God, and you're doing what God desires, you don't need to fear the influence of the spiritual that would be destructive. Satan and his cohorts would want to sow things in our lives, but he has no right if we're in that place. However, if you're not in that place, you're not doing what God would desire, and you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, whether you're claiming to be a Christian or not, then the potential for the wrong kind of spiritual communication is there. You see, there's spiritual beings, and there's us. We are not purely physical, we are also spiritual. And the Bible speaks clearly about that. So I want to come to this next question then. Why are dreams so hard to understand? The first one is that dreams speak in a language and with symbols. We can go a little bit further. They speak in a language and symbols that we need to learn to understand, which I've written twice. I guess we need to understand. We need to learn to do it. You see, if you learn a language, it takes time. And it's not just a case of learning words, it's concepts. When we did some training overseas in Tasmania, my wife and myself, we did this phonetics and phonemics course, which was the basic structures of languages. And one of the things that our lecturer said to us, and he was a guy who knew 5 languages, including Arabic and one of the Chinese languages, and French, English, and I forget what the 5th one was. He said to us that the best way to learn a language is to totally immerse yourself in that language and to refuse to speak the language you already know. The best way to learn it is to do that. You see, it always gets difficult. My wife had grave difficulties with this because she gets her THs and Fs mixed up when she speaks, if you listen to her carefully. Just a little thing that's always happened to us since she's a little girl. And the lecturer told us this thing, and then he took us into this phonetics course, and he put all these words, placebo words in a way. They had no meaning. They were just sounds that we had to generate. Unfortunately for Pauline, he put in one of these words the sounds that are equivalent to a TH and an F. And she said it back to front. She started giggling. I started laughing. The lecturer sat there and he looked at her and he said to her, he said, "What did you just do?" He said, "I know you did something, but I can't figure it out." You see, what had happened with Pauline, and in the end what he did to try and teach Pauline to put a THs in the right place, he stuck his tongue between his teeth and sat there for some time. And in the end the whole class was in hysterics because he had a particularly large tongue. But the thing that Pauline needed to learn was that she needed to forget the English expressions that she was used to and just to look at the words that were there and seek to say them, seek to speak what was there rather than equate it with the English, and she wouldn't have gotten into trouble. And we kind of like that. With dreams, we need to be people who are going to realise that we need to learn the language. We need to learn the symbols that are there. But I want to give you a warning here. I know there are groups around, and especially some of the spiritualist groups, who say, this thing equals that. This thing equals that. For example, they would say that a star in your dream means that there's good news coming. That's one particular group would say that. Well, a star in a dream wasn't always good news. Or they might say that a car travelling down the road fast is a symbol of danger. But it's not always a symbol of danger in dreams. So you need to be careful when you come to dreams that you realise that just because you saw the same symbol in one dream and it meant this, and you discovered through experience that it meant this thing, the next time you see that same symbol, it may not mean the same thing. There is no single interpretation of any symbol that would hold true for every dream, says Herman Riffle. Now I think that's important for us to realise, because I've heard people, and many people, Christians and those who are not, who have made some assumptions about dreams, or have been trying to help others understand dreams, and they've made assumptions because they have seen a number of occasions where that particular thing has meant a particular thing at a particular time. And it may be that that symbol or that particular concept, that particular experience in another situation may mean something very, very different. The second aspect as to why dreams are so hard to understand, which Marilyn won't cover for us. Dreams often speak about things we do not already know or understand. They often reveal blind spots, strengths, or unknown information in our lives. Now, one of the interesting things about dreams that I think we need to think about is the fact that dreams don't often happen to us during daylight hours, except if we're working and we go to sleep at work. Sometimes people will have visions, but very rarely. There's very few people who have visions. Now the thing is, that what we need to do when we come to dreams and trying to understand them, we need to realise that we may not have the right information to understand it clearly. See, Abraham Lincoln could have had the right information, but he simply didn't believe. He had a blind spot. He didn't believe that his presidency could come to an end when it did. He thought he was going to have a longer time, and that's probably one of the main reasons why he didn't understand his dream, where he was seeing a person who he didn't recognise lying in state. So, if that's the case, then what does this mean? I think this means that we need to have people that are going to be able to develop the skill of understanding dreams. Now, in the Bible, there was a man by the name of Daniel. There was another man by the name of Joseph, and another one by the name of John, all of them who were particularly skilled at understanding dreams. Many people know of Daniel in the lion's den, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But the real story of Daniel was a repetition of dreams that he understood, that he interpreted because of his really strong relationship that he had with God. And that was the reason that was given. But I want to go back and I want to show you a story, reveal to you a story that Joseph had and experienced. And let me read a little and see if you can figure out what this means. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master. The king of Egypt, Pharaoh, was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. And after they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in the prison, had a dream the same night. And each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened with grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." That was his dream. I'm not going to tell you the next piece. I'm going to jump. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given an interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." That was his dream. I want to ask you a question. What do you think those 2 little dreams meant? Very short dreams. Let me tell the 2 again, and I want you to think. In a dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put them in the cup in his hand. The second dream went like this. I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. Obtuse kinds of pictures, aren't they? Strange things that maybe you wouldn't understand. And certainly both these guys did not understand the dreams that they had. And Joseph was compelled to actually give an interpretation. The first dream, the interpretation was like this. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to a position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. And then the second one. Second guy thought, well, wow, that was a favourable dream. Favourable answer. I'll tell him my dream too. He had also seen 3 baskets, remember. This is what Joseph said to him. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Now, kind of scary dream, that second one, wasn't it? Very simple, very clear, but not understood by either of the men who received them. One of the things that has happened, and several people have told me, although I don't know the names of those who are here, several people told me they gave out invitations to come to this session and to next week's one as well. And on several occasions, our people reported back to me. People said, "Whoa, I just had this last week. You won't believe it, I had this dream and I don't understand it." It's an amazing dream. So, in the journey that we're going to come to next week, we're going to unfathom, help you grapple with what a dreams are about. But I want to say this to you first. The kind of attitude we show toward a dream is the kind of response that we will receive from it. Let's be very careful about this. The kind of attitude you show towards your dream will dictate the kind of response you will receive from it. See, the 2 guys who had the dream with Joseph, and Joseph was a man who had this gift and ability to interpret, they were not understood. And sometimes the dreams can be very miraculous. In that case, I wouldn't have called having my head lifted off very, very miraculous, but sometimes they can. I know of a man who was an Indian who visited Germany some years ago. And he was visiting a man who was well known for his ministry as a Christian in Germany during a hard period of Germany's history. And this Indian came and they had an interpreter, and during the session, the Indian was speaking and had this interpreter speaking. Suddenly he said, in the middle of his address, he spoke to one man, and imagine it was you, in the middle of the crowd. And he said, I had this dream before I came to Germany, and this is what I saw. And Herman tells a story where he had these series of dreams, and he had not fully understood them, but he did know one thing, that God was saying to him, I want you to build a youth centre. But he'd been through some troubles, and he decided he wasn't going to do it. And as a consequence, he had been suffering. He had not been happy doing what he was meant to be doing. He was meant to be serving God. And he wasn't happy at all. However, what happened, this Indian man said to him, God told me in my dream I was going to meet you, and I saw you exactly, and this is what God told me. Now, they'd never met before. God told me that you're to build a youth centre, and you've said no, and you've been disobedient. And God is saying, go, 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 and do what I tell you to do. Because if you don't, you'll be sad and you will suffer. When Herman tells the story, he said, what could he do? You see, his attitude in response to the dream of even another person became the right attitude. In our readings today, we had these words said, as a dream comes when there are many cares, so is the speech of a fool when there are many words. Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, stand in awe of God. And why does it say that? It simply says it because it recognises that God is the one who has the understanding of your dreams. You see, often we have dreams when we have great cares. Sometimes we'll equate them as being nightmares, but maybe they have more significance than that. Maybe we've been too quick to brush them off. One of the other sayings went like this: I had a dream that made me afraid. As I was laying in my bed, the images and visions that passed through my mind terrified me, said the king, Nebuchadnezzar. It terrified me. And yet there was an answer to that dream. He didn't understand his dream, but there was an answer to it. And we as a people, as a human race, at the moment we've just moved into a period of history which I believe is very significant. It was foretold a long ago. It was foretold by a man, Joel. So it said these words. God said, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I believe right now we're going to face a greater increase of the number of dreams and visions that are going to happen. And I believe that God wants us to understand those dreams. I believe that He would like you to be able to participate with Him. And He would want you to be a person who's not seen as some kind of super spiritual, but a person who really is willing to sit down and seek to work out what might be important and significant in your life. And I want to say this to you. I don't think many of you will be able to do it on your own. You see, I think we all have blind spots. I think we all need each other. And certainly the Bible says that. And certainly in terms of what God says and showed by example, is that dreams were only understood in the context of others, in the context of God. I really pray that you're able to come next week and discover, because you see, what we're going to do next week is seek to come to a place of saying, well, how do we go about interpreting our dreams. We couldn't achieve that in one session today. We needed this introduction. We needed, for some of us at least, we needed to think about the significance of our dreams. But I don't want to leave you hanging right here. I want to say to you that if you have had dreams and you're troubled by them and you want answers, then please feel free to come and talk with some of us afterwards. And not everybody here in the church has the ability to understand and interpret dreams, but there are some, and I know it makes a congregation. And so I would encourage that if you have one, just say to your friend that you've come with, or if you've come on your own, come and see one of us. Can I talk about my dream? Because we'd love to do that with you today. But before we do, we're going to talk to God and ask Him to start to show us, give us some understanding of what He's trying to say to us. And if you'd like to agree with this prayer, at the end of the prayer I'd like you to say, when I say, and all the people said, I'd like you to say, Amen. Let's do this together. Father God, we come to you. We don't understand everything that we see. We don't understand all the dreams we have, and it doesn't matter who we are. In this room here, there's friends and families of ours too who've had troubling dreams and some exciting dreams, but still not been understood. And we want to come to you and acknowledge today that you made us. You made us with a spirit, and we've killed our spirit to some degree because we've not remained open to you. And we need to learn how to understand what you're saying to us and the dreams and visions that we do have. So we'd come to you today and we'd say, God, we're really sorry that we've not really put any effort into really wanting to understand what you might be saying. And we'd ask you to show us and to help us to be able to understand what you might be saying to us. We'd ask you to forgive us for the times when we have either ignored what you're saying or haven't been bothered to even chase it up. Or we've just been confused and not realised that you were even speaking. Forgive us for being so ignorant sometimes. And we know that you have said you're interested in our lives, and we want to sort of step out today and say, well, God, we want you to help us to understand, but we want to give you a fair shot in our lives. We want to understand you. So lead us, we pray. Show us the significance of a life you've put before us. Teach us how to live like you. In Jesus' name. And all the people said? Amen. And all the people said? Amen. Well, Lord bless you. There's a cup of tea afterwards. And I'd love you to show some appreciation to all the people here who've done so much work. Yes, that's a good suggestion. Robert's saying something that I think is very helpful. If you're a person and you'd like to understand your dreams, then one of the best things you could possibly do is have a piece of paper and pencil beside your bed and a small light so you don't wake your marriage partner up if you're married. And write down your dreams, just because some people do forget them afterwards. Have a wonderful day. May the Lord be with you. See you next week.